Most people didn't even look up when he walked in. They felt the blast of cold air from the door. They saw the mud caked onto his shoes and the plastic bag he clutched in both hands like it held everything he owned. A few people caught the smell of rain and unwashed clothes and turned back to their plates without a second thought. What they decided in that split second was simple. He didn't fit here. And that was enough reason to pretend he wasn't there. All except one person. The waitress who helped a homeless man had no idea that a single quiet choice on a rainy Tuesday evening would send her life in a direction she never could have planned. The diner sat on the edge of a two-lane road just outside Columbus, Ohio, the kind of place that never really closed and never really changed. Truck drivers pulled in after long hauls. Night shift workers stopped for eggs and toast before heading home. Families squeezed into corner booths on weekends. The coffee was strong, the portions were generous, and the yellow light inside always made the parking lot look warmer than it actually was. Sarah Merritt had been working there for almost 3 years. She knew the rhythm of the place the way a musician knows a song they've played 1,000 times. She knew which tables wobbled and which stools at the counter creaked. She knew that the couple in booth 5 always split a piece of pie, that the old man by the window liked his eggs with no pepper, and that the construction crew that came in every Thursday would tip well if you kept their coffee cups full without being asked. Sarah had learned to pay attention to details. She'd had to. Her younger brother had been diagnosed with a heart condition 18 months ago, and the cost of his medication alone was enough to keep Sarah awake most nights staring at the ceiling. She had picked up doubles, covered shifts for coworkers, and smiled through exhaustion more times than she could count. Every single tip went somewhere important. None of it was wasted. So she understood, better than most, what it felt like to need something and be afraid to ask for it. The diner manager, a stocky man named Greg Paulson, had made one thing perfectly clear since the day he hired her. "We run a business here, not a shelter," he would say whenever the topic came up. "People who can't pay don't sit at my tables. That's just how it is." Sarah had never challenged him on it. Until tonight. The door swung open and the man stepped inside slowly, like he wasn't quite sure the floor would hold him. He was somewhere in his late 50s, maybe older. His jacket was thin for the weather, the zipper broken at the bottom. His gray hair was damp from the rain, and his eyes moved around the room carefully, the way a person's eyes move when they're used to being asked to leave. He chose a small table near the back, away from the window, away from most of the other customers. He set his plastic bag on the seat beside him and folded his hands on the table. A few customers nearby exchanged glances. A teenager at the counter whispered something to his friend, and they both laughed quietly. A woman subtly shifted her chair so her back was more fully turned toward him. Sarah watched all of this from behind the counter. Then she picked up a menu, tucked it under her arm, and walked over. "Evening," she said warmly. "Glad you're in out of the rain." The man looked up slowly. His expression carried the particular kind of surprise that comes from not expecting to be spoken to kindly. "Thank you," he said. His voice was low and careful. She set the menu down in front of him. He looked at it for a moment, then back up at her with an honesty in his eyes that made her chest ache a little. "I appreciate the kindness," he said quietly. "But I don't have any money on me tonight. I just needed somewhere dry to sit for a little while." Sarah heard Greg moving around behind the kitchen door. She knew exactly what would happen if he came out right now. She looked at the man's jacket, still dripping at the hem. She looked at his hands, raw and stiff from the cold. "Give me just a second," she said. She went to the kitchen, moved quickly and quietly, and came back 7 minutes later carrying a bowl of beef stew, a plate of cornbread, and a large hot coffee with a lid so it would stay warm longer. She set everything on the table carefully. The man stared at it without speaking. When he finally looked up, his eyes were glassy. "I told you," he said, barely above a whisper. "I can't pay." "I know," Sarah said. "Then what is this?" She offered a small smile. "This is just dinner." He pressed his lips together and looked back down at the bowl. "Why would you do this?" he asked. Sarah thought about it for a half second. "Because it's cold outside and you're a person," she said simply. "That's enough of a reason." She went back to her other tables. The rest of the evening moved the way evenings usually did. Orders came in, plates went out, coffee was poured and poured again. But every so often Sarah glanced toward the back of the room. The man ate like someone who was grateful for every spoonful. When he was finished, he stood up, smoothed out his jacket, and made his way toward the door. He paused beside Sarah as she was clearing a nearby table. "That was the first hot meal I've had in 4 days," he said. Sarah stopped what she was doing. "I hope tomorrow is better," she told him. He nodded slowly. Then he said something that she would turn over in her mind later that night. "You know, I've walked into a lot of places over the past few weeks. Most people looked right through me. You're the first person who looked at me like I was still somebody." Then he pushed open the door and walked out into the dark, wet street. Sarah stood there for a moment. Then she went back to work. She figured that was the end of it. A small thing. A good thing, but a small one. The kind of moment you carry quietly and don't talk about much. But the very next afternoon, Sarah arrived for her shift and stopped in the parking lot. 3 sleek black SUVs sat parked near the entrance. Through the window, she could see men in pressed shirts and blazers standing near the counter. Greg was behind the register looking stiff and pale in a way she had never seen before. She walked through the door carefully. Every head turned. One of the men near the counter stepped forward. "Are you Sarah Merritt?" "I am," she said slowly. "Is everything all right?" "Everything is very all right," the man said. "We've been waiting for you." The diner door opened behind her before she could respond. She turned around. And there he was. The same man from the night before, except nothing about him looked the same. The broken zipper was gone, replaced by a charcoal overcoat that fit perfectly. His hair was combed. His posture was different, upright and unhurried, carrying the quiet weight of someone who is used to walking into rooms and having things change. Greg rushed out from behind the counter. "Mr. Harlan, sir, we're so pleased to have you." Sarah's eyes went wide. The man smiled gently at her and extended his hand. "I owe you a proper introduction," he said. "My name is Robert Harlan." The name landed hard. Robert Harlan. The man who had started as a short-order cook 40 years ago and had quietly built one of the most recognized family dining chains in the country. His picture had been in business magazines. There had been a profile on him in the newspaper just last year. And he had been sitting in the back corner of this diner eating beef stew from a bowl Sarah had paid for out of her own pocket. "You came back," she said, still finding her footing. "I had to," he said. He explained that he had spent 3 weeks visiting his locations anonymously. He wanted to understand what was actually happening inside his restaurants when no one knew he was watching. He had walked into 12 different diners dressed the same way. He had been turned away from 7 of them. Ignored in 3 more. Seated, but never served in one. And then he had walked into this one. He reached into his coat and produced an envelope. He held it out to her. Sarah opened it with uncertain hands. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a single folded letter. The letter was a formal job offer. District manager for the regional group of locations, a position that came with a salary that made her exhale slowly through her mouth. "I can't accept this," she said, shaking her head. "You already earned it," Robert said simply. "Last night." He looked at her the way someone looks at a person they've been searching for a long time. "Anybody can learn a system," he said. "Anybody can memorize a menu or manage an inventory spreadsheet. But the thing that actually makes a business worth anything, the thing I've spent 40 years trying to build into every location I own, is the belief that every single person who walks through that door deserves to be treated like they matter." He paused. "You already believe that. You proved it when you thought nobody important was watching." Sarah felt the tears come before she could stop them. She thought about her brother. About the bills still sitting on the kitchen table at home. About 3 years of doubles and sore feet and running on 4 hours of sleep. All of it shifting quietly on its axis because of one bowl of stew on a rainy Tuesday night. You go through your days making small choices, never knowing which one will be the one that matters. You never know who is sitting in the back corner of your life, watching how you treat the people that the rest of the world has decided don't count. And you never know how one moment of genuine kindness, offered with no expectation of anything in return, might be the thing that quietly changes everything. If this story moved you, Hit the like button and share it with someone who still believes in the power of being good to people. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe to the channel. There's something about these moments that remind us what actually matters.